Please rise for the posting of the colors by the Bedichek Junior Marine Corps Color Guard and the singing of the national anthem by Fifth Circuit Chief Judge Jennifer Elrod, played by Justice Brett Busby and former Chief Justice Nathan Hecht.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so wrongly we bear at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous side, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over high and over free and all of the brave.
Thank you. Okay, now we can all be seated. First, I want to recognize our special guests here tonight and ask them to please stand as I call out their names. Please hold until each group of special guests is announced. We have from the Texas Supreme Court, and I think I've seen everybody on this list here tonight, Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock, Justice Deborah Lehrman, Justice Jeff Boyd, Justice John Devine, Justice Brett Busby, Justice Jane Bland, and Justice Rebecca Huddle. Oh my gosh, Justice Sullivan, I'm so sorry. You might get a special introduction later, so I apologize that I didn't put that in my. Now that we've had two snafus for the evening, let's also recognize several of our former Texas Supreme Court justices. We have Chief Judge Priscilla Richmond, Chief Justice Tom Phillips, Justice Craig Enoch, Justice Dale Wainwright, Judge Jeff Brown, and Justice Eva Guzman. Wonderful. And I hear that Justice Phil Johnson is also here. Oh, Justice Green! Oh, Justice Green, you're my favorite, so. And Chief Justice Heck, that is right. Okay, so we're really off to a great start, y'all. I am nailing this so far. Okay, so I think we also, and luckily I do not have to list names on these, but I think we have so many of our wonderful jurists from the United States Courts of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, from the Texas Courts of Appeals. We have many trial judges, both federal and state here, and county courts at law judges. So would you all please stand so that we can recognize you too? Thank you all for your service. Additionally, we have, I think, several leaders from the State Bar of Texas. Would you please stand so that we can recognize you as well? Finally, I want to recognize this year's dinner chair, Amanda Taylor. Please stand. Please stand, Amanda. This is our flagship event each year where we present awards and celebrate the accomplishments of the society, and someone makes this all happen, and that's our dinner chair, Amanda. And I picked Amanda to chair this dinner because not only is she your go-to appellate lawyer here in the state, especially as it concerns the Austin Court of Appeals, but I have served with her on numerous committees, and I know you can always count on her to take on everything she does. So Amanda, thank you so much for your help for this evening's dinner. And now I'm going to call on Chief Justice Blacklock to introduce our newest member of the Supreme Court.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm so glad you're all here. And I'm going to introduce our newest member. I'm also going to say a couple of other things as well. I'm going to start, though. The first thing I need to do at my first Hemphill dinner as Chief Justice is say thank you to a man who you all know and who needs no introduction, and who was the illustrious leader of this court for so many years, and who has been a justice for every Hemphill dinner that has ever happened. He has been a justice at that Hemphill dinner, and this is now his first dinner where he is no longer a justice. He is a great man, a great judge, and he is my dear friend, and I want you all to give a warm welcome to Chief Justice Nathan Lincoln Hecht. Nathan, Priscilla, we love you, and we wish you the best in everything that you have waiting for you, and we hope to see so much of you. We welcomed earlier this year to the court our newest justice, who I guess didn't really get much of an introduction earlier, so let's hear it for Justice James Sullivan. Justice Sullivan, if you've been at this dinner many, many times, I know. If you feel like people are being nicer to you this year, surely it's because you're just smarter and better looking than you used to be. But seriously, Justice Sullivan has been a productive and hardworking and thoughtful member of the court in just the few months that he's been with us, and we are delighted to have him and honored to have him as our newest member of the court, and we'll be happy to have him for many more years, or many more weeks, or many more hours. Any senators in the room? But for as long as he serves on the court, he will be a credit to the court. I am very sure of that. And we're very glad to have you, Justice Sullivan. And I also want to recognize an excellent judge, a wonderful man, a dear friend of mine who just retired from the court a few days ago, and that's Justice Jeff Boyd. Those of you who know Justice Boyd, or if you follow the court closely, you know that he has a well-earned reputation for hard work, for scrupulous preparation, for open-mindedness and even-handedness. And above all, in my mind, he has a reputation for independence, for coming to his honest assessment of the law without fear or favor and sticking to it. And if you follow the court's decisions, you know that he and I often disagree. But we respect each other and we respect the way that we disagree. And I have so much respect and gratitude for Justice Boyd and the way that he approached his job and the independent spirit that he brought to the court that is so essential to what we do. Thank you, Jeff. And if you'll indulge me before I sit down on the topic of judicial independence, I would like to recognize another group of judges, a couple of whom are with us here tonight. And those are the judges of the 15th Court of Appeals, Chief Justice Scott Brister, Justice Scott Field, and Justice April Ferris. These are excellent, hardworking judges who do everything they can to follow the law and to uphold their oaths. And far be it for me to pass judgment on Scott Brister's aptitude as a judge. Res ipsa loquitur. But I also know them personally. And I know them to be men and women of integrity, honesty, and the highest moral character. And it grieves me to think that even a single one of our fellow Texans might have been given a different impression by the scurrilous nonsense that they might have read on Twitter last week. And I don't want to dwell on that, but I do want to say one thing about it. One element of that nonsense was the idea that there's a constitutional crisis in the Texas judiciary. And not only is that nonsense, it is the opposite of the truth. Because the only constitutional crisis would be if the judges of this state bent the knee to political intimidation from other branches of government. And that we will not do and we have not done. You know, it's important that we study the history of our courts and the history of our Constitution. What the society does is so important. And we have, for the same reason, I think, we have portraits of former justices hanging in our courtroom. And courtrooms all across the state have portraits of the judges who have come before us, the judges who have built and preserved the constitutional heritage that we have now been given. And they are watching from those portraits, whether they're in this life or the next. They're watching. And they're watching to see whether, we have stood on their shoulders, and will we stand strong so that the people who come after us can stand on our shoulders? That's the challenge for us as judges and as lawyers too. And it can be lonely as a judge. I think all of you in this room, many of you in this room, are judges, have been judges, and you know what I say when I say it can feel lonely. But I think if we think about it correctly, it is not lonely. There are so many people with us. Everybody in this room, everybody in our country, everybody who believes in the ideal of a fair and neutral and impartial and independent judiciary whose fealty is to the law and not to a politician or a political party. They are with us. All those judges who came before us, whose portraits hang in our courthouses, they are with us. I believe that the vast majority of our fellow Texans from both political parties expect and deserve judges who will apply the law honestly and fairly and even-handedly without regard to political pressure. And they are with us. And most importantly, the presence that matters most is the one that's referenced in the prayer that's written on the bench where we'll sit next week. Let us all ask in all of these things and all of the challenges that we face for the sake of our courts and for our country, let us ask that God would be with us as he was with our fathers. Sicut patribus, sit Deus nobis. God bless you. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to others who are going to present the Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Award, which is named after a man you might call one of the fathers of the Supreme Court.
Chief Justice Blacklock, President Hobbs, and Patrice Childress, the chair of the board of the Texas Center for Legal Ethics, and to my dean of Texas A&M Law School, Dean Bobby Adier. I had to do that because he's here, so there's that. And distinguished guests, my name is Audrey Moorhead, and I'm judge of Dallas County Criminal Court Number 3, and it has been my honor to serve as chair of the Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Awards Committee. Now, we've all been to events where an award is announced, and the first thought is, well, how much did they pay for that? I assure you that is not the case tonight. In fact, once you hear this recipient's name, the only reasonable response will be a collective, of course, or as an appellate judge would like to say, duh. This past year, I also had the privilege of serving as chair of the Board of Trustees for the Texas Center for Legal Ethics. My biggest assignment was to find a new executive director after more than 15 years of steady leadership. That was no small task. But I am so proud to say that we found the right person. He's a graduate of Texas Tech School of Law. He served as in-house counsel for the State Bar of Texas, and he was a disciplinary rules and referenda attorney for the State Bar of Texas. And more importantly, he doesn't just talk about ethics, professionalism, and civility. He lives these ideals every day. The center is in excellent hands, and it is my great pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the Texas Center for Legal Ethics, Brad Johnson.
Well, it's great to be here, and thank you, Judge Moorhead, for the very kind introduction. I want to thank Judge Moorhead as well as our chair of the Center for Legal Ethics, Patrice Childress, for their superb leadership and for all of their support. It's really fantastic to be here. It's an honor to be on the stage and to be with all of you today. The Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Award was first awarded in 2009. And it's actually named after one of the founders of the Texas Center for Legal Ethics, who really exemplified and personified ethics and civility and professionalism. And as many of you know, each year we present that award to someone in the appellate bar who sets that same example, that same standard of professionalism, of integrity, of civility. And, all of our recipients who have received this award, they really have an amazing is an understatement, but an amazing list of accomplishments. They're very acclaimed. They've done tremendous things. But the award really focuses on the manner in which they conducted themselves, the professionalism, the ethics, and the civility that they displayed while achieving such great things. And this year's no exception. Before we get to this year's recipient, I do think that we have a number of past Pope Award winners in the audience, and I've been very pleased to see a few around the room. I was hoping, not to put you on the spot, but to totally put you on the spot, I was hoping that any past recipients who are here might stand for just a minute to get some much-deserved recognition. So if you did receive the award and could stand. On behalf of the Center, we want to thank you for being here and for the example you've set, and are very proud to be here with you. The recipient of the 2015 Pope Professionalism Award is Mike Hatchell. Yeah. And I think many of you in the room are very familiar with Mike Hatchell and his accomplishments. It's a very impressive list. I can tell you how Mike Hatchell has been lead counsel in over 400 appeals, how he's a member of the Supreme Court's Advisory Committee. I could mention past awards that he's received. I really could go on, but I think it would be more fitting if I read a few comments from some names that I think you'll recognize talking about Mike Hatchell. Kevin DuBose is a prior recipient of the Chief Justice Jack Pope Professionalism Award. And speaking of Mike Hatchell, Kevin said, Mike Hatchell is widely regarded as the Dean of the Texas Appellate Bar, not only for his pioneering role when few appellate specialists existed, but for the standard of excellence, craftsmanship, and integrity he has set throughout his career. Skip Watson, who also received the Pope Award, said of Mike Hatchell, in my opinion, he was and is the finest appellate lawyer in Texas history. Skip went on to say, I can only vouch that no one is more worthy of an award named after Jack Pope than Mike Hatchell. And former Chief Justice Nathan Heck said of Mike Hatchell is a pioneer in the appellate bar. He practiced appellate law as a specialty back in the day when trial lawyers regularly handled appeals themselves. He showed how cases should be argued to judges, not jurors. Chief Justice Heck went on to say, Mike Hatchell is a scholar of appellate law and practice. In the courtroom where I heard him argue many cases,
In his practice, in our profession, and personally, he is invariably a model of integrity, thoughtfulness, good humor, and good sense. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to welcome Mike Hatchell to come, and Chief Justice Blacklock will present him with the Professionalism Award.
Well, thank you very much. This award is humbling in one sense and cherished in another. It's cherished because of the people who have gone before me, many of whom you saw tonight. I consider many of them close personal friends, and they have been exemplars to me during my practice. The second reason it's so cherished is the name on the award. I was lucky to be serving the court as a briefing attorney in 1965 when Judge Pope was sworn in for the first time, and I got to see, because clerks got to sit in on all conferences, how his tenacity and his belief in what he believed in, his adherence to his ideals and the way he fought for them, could really change the dynamic of the deliberations within the court. After he retired, and I was at Lauderdale and Sap at that time, Raul Gonzalez was of counsel to the firm, and he would periodically ring up Judge Pope to see if he was available for lunch. And when he was, we'd all trail over to his house, pick him up, and his favorite place was Red Lobster. I always thought there was some inconsistency between him living to 104 and his favorite place to eat. Every meeting at Red Lobster began with a prayer. And that showed to me that you should have your moral beliefs, ethics, and standards and faith on your shirt sleeve and never be afraid to demonstrate them in public. After I learned of this award, I began to think, what is professionalism? And I know it's not something innate. It's something you learn through life's experiences. Particularly the people that you associate yourself with. And I've been rich in that regard, and I want to just share two examples. The first example occurred prior to what was looking to be a fist fight in a dusty parking lot in downtown Austin. I went down to the office with my dad to work a couple of hours on a Saturday. On the way back to the car, a man came over cursing at my dad loudly and said that he would mop up the floor with him if it wasn't for your young son being present. Well, Dad got the situation calmed down as he usually could. And he said, what that about is that this man is opposing counsel in a case. And he tried to do something unethical and maybe even illegal, and I stopped him from doing it. So with that, I learned that professionalism can be a hazard to your health. I think in my journey I want to share with you two more, perhaps the most important events. It occurred on the first hour of the first day of my job as a briefing attorney at the Supreme Court of Texas. Judge Calvert assembled all of the briefing attorneys in the court's conference room, told us a little bit about our duties, but then he said, I want to tell you about how you should comport yourself. He said, during this year, you are a representative of this court. You are bound to a standard of not even brooking a hint of impropriety. And then he got specific. And he said, if you ever need to come back to work late on a project, you can't bring your girlfriend with you. But that's who Judge Calvert was. And then it got more specific as to me one day. It was an argument day, and there was a case I wanted to hear. I looked at my watch and I was late. And so I ran down to the court, slipped in, and heard the final moments of the rebuttal of the case before the one I wanted to hear. And as the lawyers were changing place, I noticed Judge Calvert was writing. And then he finished and he took a sheet of paper, and he folded it, and then he passed it to the judge to his left, who passed it to the judge to his left. And the audience is sitting out there and they're watching this piece of paper go. Gets down to the end, the last judge calls the marshal over, gives the piece of paper to the marshal. And the marshal beckons, and Garson Jackson, the clerk, comes up, gives him the piece of paper, and then, guess what? He gave it to me. I thought I'd been chosen for a particular assignment. I opened it up, and 5 words: go put on your coat. That said to me that even the smallest way you do things in this profession is important in professionalism. But the most impactful thing that Judge Calvert said on that first day of that first hour of my first day was, when you are here working for this court, you are a representative of the court. And by the way, when you leave the court, I consider you to be a representative of the court. And I want you to behave that way always. Well, that was a daunting task because of the 49 cases that I argued in the court. Judge Calvert's, most of those cases, Judge Calvert's portrait, very stern-looking portrait, by the way, was gazing down upon me. So I always had that guidance. I hope that this award indicates that I somehow got close to achieving what he would expect of me. And it's for that reason that I'm glad to accept.
Okay, now I'm going to call up Warren Harris to give us our Fellows Award.
One of the benefits of being a fellow is our exclusive event, the annual Fellows Dinner. In the spring of each year, the fellows gather with the justices of the Texas Supreme Court for a collegial dinner. We always choose a unique Austin venue, and the locations of past dinners have included the Bland Museum of Art, the Lieutenant Governor's private dining room in the Capitol, the University of Texas Athletics Hall of Fame, the Bauer House, and the LBJ Presidential Library. The attendees always comment on the elegance, uniqueness, and fellowship of this intimate dinner. A top caterer provides a gourmet meal to be accompanied by great wines contributed by the fellows. This year's Fellows Dinner was one of our most special to date. The justices join the fellows in March at the incredible Harry Ransom Center for a wonderful evening of conversation. This is the perfect time to join the fellows if you have interest in attending next year's dinner. Although he is not able to be here this evening, on behalf of the fellows, I would like to thank our past chair, David Beck, for his service. David has always been an enthusiastic supporter of the Fellows Program and has the distinction of being our very first fellow. Among other things, David was instrumental in recruiting all of our charter fellows. David was also instrumental in the development of the Society's program of creating reenactments of historic cases, and he argued for the state in the Texas versus White case at the 2012 State Bar Annual Meeting. And David has always played a critical role in planning our fellows' dinners. We appreciate David's service to the Society and to the fellows. The numbers of fellows continues to grow. We've had several lawyers and judges join the fellows just since the beginning of this year. We're pleased to welcome as new fellows Judge Christina Bryan and Trey Peacock, Mindy and Joshua Davis, Joe Greenhill, Chief Justice Tom Phillips, and Russell Post. We're excited to have them all as new fellows. And finally, I would like to recognize the fellows who are in attendance here this evening. Would all the fellows that are here please stand so that we can thank you for your contribution to the Society. On behalf of the Society, I want to thank the fellows for their generous support, which allows us to do programs like our Taming Texas project, a judicial civics educational program that puts lawyers and judges in classrooms across the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Warren. Well, I am excited I'm excited to end my term tonight. It has been both an honor and a joy to be the president of the Society. The highlight of my year was definitely our spring 2025 members and board meeting in Nacogdoches. The location was special to me because I am actually from East Texas, from Shelby County, just east of Nacogdoches. But this was all, Nacogdoches is also the hometown of former Texas Supreme Court Justice and Fifth Circuit Judge Thomas Reevely. The trip to Nacogdoches was especially exciting because Kyle Ainsworth, who is an archivist at the Stephen F. Austin University, allowed us to review archival records that illustrated Judge Reevely's life, including his Nacogdoches High School report cards, his transcripts from Harvard Law School, and articles that he had written for SFA's Pine Log College newspaper. So it was just a beautiful glimpse into a wonderful jurist's life there in Nacogdoches. We had a presentation by local historian Jeff Apt and toured several historical sites within the downtown area, including those specific to Judge Reevely, including his childhood home, which was beautiful. I encourage everybody, if you get a chance to go to Nacogdoches, I think there were a lot of people who were like, why are we going to Nacogdoches? But it was definitely a highlight of this year for me. I want to encourage everyone to also visit our website, which is texascourthistory.org. There you can find many of the Society's publications, including the Taming Texas books that Warren Harris just spoke about, as well as electronic copies of our award-winning journal of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society. And as to those, I just want to personally thank Justice John Browning, who is the editor-in-chief of our journal, as well as our managing editor, Karen Payton. Right now, you will find our latest issue, which is the summer 2025 issue, and it focuses on the First Amendment history in Texas. Richard Orsinger has written a piece on the history of Rule 76A, which is our sealing of court records rule. There's also a article from Professor Vincent Johnson discussing the Magna Carta's influence on early Texas history. John Browning examines the legal history of movie censorship in Texas. And First Amendment historian, or First Amendment advocate Tom Leatherbury also does a general reflection on the First Amendment in Texas history. So I would encourage you all to go on our website and download that, as well as the many other excellent articles that you can find there. There's even something in the summer 2025 issue for all the football fans out there. Robert Reagan presents an article titled "The First Red River Shootout," which is about one of the oldest and most contested boundary disputes in Texas history, actually in American history. So if you want to know why we call the Oklahoma game the Red River Shootout, then go check out his article. Finally, I want to extend my sincere thanks to the trustees who recently concluded their service. I'm going to call out your names, and if you're here, I would encourage you to stand up and we can applaud you at the end of everyone. The trustees who have finished their service, we're so grateful for your service: Judge Andrew Edison, Justice Brett Busby, Justice Emily Miskell, Judge John Browning, Kristen Lafreniere, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing because I just think of her as KVP, and our former presidents, Tom Leatherbury and Rich Phillips. Thank you so much for your service. I'm now going to call upon Sharon Sandel to come up and help me give the President's Award. And while Sharon is walking up, I just want to note that this society would not be near as successful as it is without the passion and dedication of Sharon, as well as our administrative administrator coordinator, Mary Sue Miller. So thank you so much for all you do for the society. This year's President Award goes to our President-elect, Aaliyah Atkins Derrick. Aaliyah has been an officer of our society for several years, and over those years, I have had the distinct pleasure to get to know her better and truly just be completely enamored by her. She is such a fabulous lawyer and a passionate person about history. She owns her own law firm in Dallas and Houston that focuses on complex employment and business matters, both litigating and mitigating them. Before getting her JD here at UT Law School, she graduated from Rice University with a BA in history. She has showed us her love of history and the power of her pen when, in the fall of 2023, she published her article in our journal, "How Trouble in Texas Led to the Court-Martial of America's Beloved Jackie Robinson." In part because of Aaliyah's scholarship, the Society was invited to a presentation at the Texas State Historical Association's 129th annual meeting in Houston in February of this year. And we presented a sports-themed block. I thought I brought my glasses up here, but I did not. A sports-themed block of the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, and the history of Texas sports law. Now you can imagine, we got a lot of people in that room to talk about the history of Texas sports. John Browning did a presentation called "Float Like a Butterfly, Sting Like a Supreme Court Opinion, Muhammad Ali's legal battle against the draft." our very own Sharon Sandel, who's quite a scholared author as well, did Cinderella season, Title IX, and the evolution of women's sports in Texas. And then, of course, Aaliyah's presentation on Jackie Robinson. And we had author and historian James Haley serve as a commentator that allowed the audience to really interact with the speakers at the event. It was so well received. It was so wonderful. And I think you were the inspiration for that wonderful event. So, Aaliyah, my friend, thank you for your service to the society, your passion for history in general, and your dedication to the society's mission. It was a surprise. No.
They may want our picture. Okay.
Thank you so much. We're going to get started on the main event, so to speak. As I thought about what I wanted for the quote unquote key night of the dinner that I was in charge of planning, I am reminded that there is more that unites us than divides us. And I think that is just really important for us to remember at this time. And nothing unites us more than the arts. And so I put together this program so that I can share with you our friends. And our amazing MC of the night is going to be former Justice Craig Enoch. I know you all know him, and so he really truly needs no introduction because he served on the judiciary at all three levels for over 22 years. So, Justice Enoch, I will turn it over to you to introduce our other esteemed guests.
Okay, glad to have you all here. If any of you are familiar with Monty Python, they used to start their next segment by saying, now for something completely different. And I'm very pleased to be the MC tonight for two important reasons. I'm going to get a chance to have a conversation with three great folks up here on the stage who are going to entertain you with their talents. The second important reason is so you don't think I'm overdressed, I'm going to be the MC. It really doesn't matter whether we chose to become civil, criminal defense lawyers, government lawyers, corporate lawyers. We all seem to look for an outlet for our creative side. I have a pet theme. I have a pet kind of view of this. I'll bet every one of you started out being a ham. And how could you do that in kind of an environment where people wouldn't look at you askance? Well, let's go to law school. We can argue, we can talk, we can get up and we can perform. And I think we all started out with that. But we have artists, we have authors, we have actors who are lawyers who take advantage of this. We each contribute to the community with our time and our talent from that. Dallas has its bar none. Houston has its night court. Austin has the bar and grill singers. It was Lisa Hobbs' idea that tonight we try and celebrate this unique character of lawyers by entertaining ourselves with outstanding members of our bar who also have outstanding talent. And so we're going to represent us with three representatives. So I'm going to invite Chief Justice Nathan Heck, Chief Judge Jennifer Elrod, and Justice Busby to come join me up here on stage. We're going to have some time to have a conversation. I really wanted you to get to see them up here. They actually do exist. They're alive and well. But I'm going to start with Justice Heck and Justice Busby about this. We'd like them to share their musical lives. We're going to talk about that, but also their musical magic. I bet everyone in the room knows that Chief Justice Heck retired as the longest serving judge in Texas. All right. But did you know he became the church organist at 15? How about Justice Busby? Now, Justice Busby, too, had really a remarkable career in the law. He was a law clerk at the 11th Circuit, and he served 2 United States Supreme Court justices. But did you know, after having dropped playing the violin for a period of time, he received a command performance from Justice O'Connor, and I think he had to regain his talent in about 48 hours, if I'm calling that correctly.
24.
Yeah, 24. Oh, that's even a better story about that. We've got the pleasure to hear them play a duet. So, gentlemen, what do you plan on playing for us?
We're going to play a short piece by Fritz Kreisler called Liebesleben.
Okay. great. That was beautiful. It kind of reminded me of the time I was back in my district judge days, working diligently in my bench. And for me to kind of concentrate, I have to have my radio on. And my clerk had borrowed my radio for a weekend. She was working down there and moved it out to the front office, which was a couple of doors away. And rather than me moving the radio, I just turned it up loud while I was working late. And supervisor came through chasing after the cleaning crew. He said, Judge, you want me to turn off this music? And I said, no, I'm listening to it. Oh, I thought the cleanup crew left it on. Thank you very much. That was beautiful. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I want to talk about Chief Judge Elrod for a little bit. Always representing a good judge, as a good judge should be, while remaining very humble. And that's a word that is associated with Judge Elrod. And anybody that you talk to about it, she's considered, as well as being humble, a sterling judge. She's a former law clerk for Lake Sim Lake. Sim and my roommate in law school went through the Senate hearing at the same time. And for some reason that year, it was to attack anybody who was a member of a country club. And Sim Lake was a member of the country club, and Richard Shell was not. And Richard called me after it was done. He said, sure glad I wasn't rich enough to be a member of a country club on it. But Chief Judge Elrod is a singer. She plays instruments, but what you don't know about Judge Elrod, she had her first solo at the age of 4. She's been very active in her church choir, and Chief, you've offered to share a song with us from For Good. Is that right?
Sure.
Okay, will you entertain us, please?
Well, I'm getting this together. This is a reprise of something that my Inn of Court group did this year. And it was a tribute to civility. And some of you have heard part of this at the Fifth Circuit Conference this year, so it will be a reprise for you from there as well. And it was a tribute to civility, but it focused on the Texas Lawyers Creed. And so it was Saturday morning cartoons and, SpongeBob and Scooby-Doo and all kinds of groups. And it was a whole series of vignettes about the Texas Lawyers Creed and how in different circumstances these folks would come in. And our inn does these shows every year, and it's a lot of fun. And anyway. I've heard it said the lawyer creed came into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led by rules that help attorneys grow if we let them. Civility is what we learned. Well, now you know and should believe that's true. And we're all who we are today because we know you. Like a case that's fully settled before all summons are served. Like discovery moving swiftly, no obstructions occurred. Who can say if law's been changed for the better? But because we're civil, we have been changed for good. It well may be that we'll be on opposing sides in the courtroom. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I've learned from you. You'll be with me. The lawyer's creed is in my heart. And now whatever way our appeals end, The Texas Supreme Court Historical Society is better off friends. Don't you think so? Like taking time from your morning to teach Texas with me. Like an appeal where all counsel act as they should. Y'all need to behave. Who can say if law's been changed for the better? But because we're civil, we have been changed for good.
Wonderful. Okay, it's about time. Several years ago, I had a busy time, and my wife, Kay, and my daughter went on a mother-daughter trip to New York, and they saw Wicked. And for months afterwards, I was hearing Wicked around the house, and I still like it. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, gang, let's have a conversation about your musical backgrounds. Here's my surprise question. I learned this a new term. Absolute pitch, or I used to call it perfect pitch. 1 in 10,000 have that. Do any of you have perfect pitch?
I obviously don't have that.
I had to ask a question. My older brother had perfect pitch. He could stand with his back to a piano. My dad could hit a note, and my brother could tell him what note it was. And that's what it is. But you can't have this kind of talent without having some understanding of pitch. So I just had to ask the question. Okay, no more surprise questions. How did music begin for you? And Nathan, you described your early years in music development as nearly miraculous. Can you tell us how that happened and what you thought?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, a small farm, wheat farm in eastern New Mexico next to Panhandle. And we were poor wheat farmers. And I don't know where I got this in my head, listening to the radio or something, but I told my dad, I said, I want to play the piano. And so my father, wanting everything good to happen for his kids, whatever they thought that was, scratched together enough to buy a piano. And back then, music lessons cost $2.50 an hour.
Which was a lot of money.
Which was a lot of money, twice a month. And so after I got started, I thought, this is great, but I just don't like practicing. And my mother would say, your father is paying $2.50 a lesson. You get in there and practice. Yes, ma'am. So I did. And I did tell you miraculous, Craig, because I had a great music teacher. And how in the world do you think you're going to get a great piano teacher in a town of 22,000 people in eastern New Mexico back in those days? But I did. And she really got me started in learning music and loving music. And then a couple years later, just a couple years, I wanted to play the organ. And one of our neighbors, who was a farmer, his wife had studied at Juilliard. This is in eastern New Mexico. And she had studied organ at Juilliard, and she took me on as a student. And so, it was, you really couldn't expect that, but it turned out it was a wonderful thing.
Brett, you were surrounded by music in your Amarillo and Austin days. What piqued your interest in the violin and pursuing that?
Well, I wish I could remember, but I was very young when I started. My parents, we lived in Amarillo till I was about 8, and my parents took me to the Sunday afternoon symphony that the Amarillo Symphony put on for kids, so that the kids could come and listen, starting when I was 2. I'm not sure why they thought that I might have a particular interest in that, but I'm sure grateful that they did, and so I one day pointed up to the stage, according to my mother. I don't have any independent recollection of this at almost 3 years old, and said, "I want to play that," pointing up to the violin. And she said, "Well, we think you're a little young, but we'll look around." And really very similar to what Nathan said, it was really almost miraculous that in Amarillo, Texas in those days, there was a lady who had been to Japan to study with Dr. Shunichi Suzuki, who was one of the first people that started teaching kids to play by ear at very young ages before they could read music. And so my parents found this person and got me to start when I was 3 years old.
That's amazing.
So you started singing solo 4 years old. So tell
Away in a manger, that's you always have the little ones sing that, That's
what got your interest in singing?
there was always music going on in my grandparents' house, and I just liked to sing along, and people were singing, and I spent a lot of time at church, and I joined the adult choir because it was a small, tiny church, and and I sang with the grown-ups when I was in elementary school in the choir. And I used to check out records from the library in town with Beverly Sills singing opera. And my parents were not into that at all, but I would check these out. And what happened, my mother died when I was in the 2nd grade, and she told my dad before she died, she said, "I want her to get a piano and to take piano lessons." And so he came home and said, "You're going to take piano lessons. Your mom wanted you to take piano lessons," and he bought us a piano. And so I started playing the piano and doing a fair amount of singing and that sort of thing, in the different school choirs and programs and in the plays and all of that sort of stuff. And it was, my husband and I sing in a church choir today still. And then I played the viola. I said, "What is that instrument?" I didn't know what it was because I wasn't going to the symphony at 2. And I said, what is this instrument? It's kind of a different sound. And I said, "That's the one I want to play." And I ended up playing all through college. I was the only non-major in my section at the time, and I really did enjoy that. So it's just all part of my life.
Each of you all have interesting stories, but I'm going to lead off with Brett's story about dropping the violin and then picking back up in 24 hours. Tell us about that.
So I played all the way through high school. I was in the orchestra in high school, and when I went to Duke, I played 2 years in the symphony, although I was not a music major, just because I really wanted to keep it up. But after that, I got busy with other things and ended up leaving the symphony, and I still had my violin and would play occasionally. And then when I went to law school at Columbia, which of course New York's a very musical city, and I got to see some wonderful concerts when I was there. And there actually is a lawyer's orchestra in New York City. Houston has a doctor's orchestra, people may know, but New York has enough lawyers who play instruments that they have a lawyer's orchestra. So I did sit in with them a couple of times to just kind of keep things going, but really didn't play with any regularity. And then when I got to the Supreme Court, clerking for Justice White and Justice Stevens, Justice O'Connor's chambers was right next to where my office was, and so I'd had occasion to visit with her. She and my grandmother had very similar upbringings in very rural parts of the Great Plains, but I had no idea that she knew that I had ever played the violin. But I had heard somebody say, Justice O'Connor likes to figure out who has musical talent and put you on the spot and make you play something. So I'm sitting in my office, and one of her clerks comes in and says, "The justice would like to speak with you." I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what this is about, but we go down to the lunchroom in the Supreme Court building, and the justice is down there with her clerks and a friend of hers from Arizona who was a doctor. And I wish somebody in my family had thought to do this, but he borrowed a bunch of money in the 60s, and he bought a Stradivarius and a Guarneri. which for those who know about instruments, those are two of the best that you can get as far as violins and marvelous makers. But he was a heart surgeon, but an amateur violinist, and he would lend them out to symphonies for people to play, for soloists to play on, and that's how he paid off the loans and paid for the insurance. So it was a great investment for him. But Justice O'Connor was having a musical birthday party for Mr. O'Connor and at the Supreme Court, and people had come from all over the country, different music schools and conservatories to sing and play. And so the justice says to me, Brett, why don't you bring your violin tomorrow? We're having a dress rehearsal and you can play something for us. And what was I going to say? I said, of course, Justice, I'd be happy to do that. So I did have my violin, luckily, in D.C. with me, and I went home and I practiced most of the night and knocked a little of the rest off. And I get to the one of the, if any of you have ever seen the beautiful conference rooms that they have for social events, not the conference room where the justices meet, but they have two beautiful rooms for social events at the court, and it was in one of those rooms, and they have a beautiful piano there. And so I'm taking my violin out, getting ready to play something sort of sheepishly, and the doctor says, oh no, play my violin. So thanks to Justice O'Connor, I got to play a Stradivarius and a Guarneri. I played a little bit of the Bach double violin concerto with the doctor, and that inspired me to get back into music once I moved to Houston and started my law practice there.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It seems like musicians oftentimes have more than one instrument that they've practiced on. I know, Nathan, we've talked about the piano and then the organ, and you've really been an organist and a pianist, accompanist in your church for many, many years. Is there any other instrument you tried your hand at?
No. A friend of mine gave me a violin many years ago, and
You're going to have to play some.
I have it sitting there. But I never tried. My mother played violin, and she played the trumpet. And that's where some of this came from. It was just kind of, it was part of life. It was part of, my father and mother were farmers, but this was a part of it, and so it got to be part of it for me.
You know, I had a little experience with a couple of instruments. I started out with a clarinet, and then the director, came to me and says, I think you're probably better at a saxophone. It's because saxophone, you don't have to hit the holes just right. You got these big pads. If you're anywhere close, you can hit it. But Brett,
I played the French horn for 2 years, and I love the sound of a French horn, but anybody that's ever tried to play it knows it's really difficult to play well, and I loved it, but I just couldn't put the time into keeping up two instruments.
And then Jennifer, you've mentioned the piano is also something you took up. Do you play along with your singing?
I'm the worst pianist in my family now, so that's my younger daughter. No, sorry, Elizabeth, but Catherine is probably the best pianist in our family now, and I've kind of moved down through the years because I don't practice, but nobody's paying $250 for me to take lessons, so but
We can fix that.
But it's
Did you? I've asked you all this kind of question as well. You have to be a bit of ham to decide to go to law school for any number of reasons. Did you all think about something else to do besides law school? Was there something else? Was it kind of a choice that you made as you got to that decision? Jennifer, you were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah. I was going to go to college to study music. That's what I wanted to study, and I auditioned at Baylor and at Trinity and University of Houston. I would take my viola and I would sing also and I got some couple of music scholarships, but one school didn't like me at all, but couple did give me some music scholarships, but my dad took me aside and he said, Jennifer, do you want to be a music teacher? And I said, I love my music teachers, but I don't think I want to be a music teacher. I think I would want to perform. And he said, oh, Jennifer, you're just not going to be good enough to be at Carnegie Hall. And that was he said, you're not going to be good enough to be at Carnegie Hall. And he said, what I fear is you're going to be traveling around in these little two-bit hotels, going from city to city in some kind of thing, and that's just not the life I see for you. And so I went home and thought about it, and I changed my major to economics. So, and then went to law school. So, and it was, I'd have to think, and I think I've told that story before to somebody, and they said, oh, that seems kind of harsh that he said that. But actually, I think that if you did want to do performance and you couldn't handle that level of rejection, you would be a failure at that for sure, because that's what that life is about, is being told no over and over again. And that little bit of rejection was, so I changed, and I hopefully y'all think it's worked out okay.
I've argued case in Supreme Court, and I've been rejected. That's good. Brett, what about you? Did you ever come to a choice like that?
Well, when I was a kid, I was fascinated by the space program and thought I might be an aerospace engineer, but I'm bad at math, so.
Me too. Yeah. That's why I went to law. Nathan?
Well, I was great at math in high school, and I tell everybody that when I got to college, turned out I loved math more than it loved me. So I was looking around, and about as far as you could get the other direction was philosophy. So that's where I went. But on music, again, Clovis is a small place, and I'd done all right, and we played recitals, and I knew who the other kids were and that took lessons and played. And I got to college, and my next door roommate was a violinist, and he was rehearsing for the New Orleans Symphony. He was a freshman in college. I said, I think I better look for something besides music, because I'm pretty far behind where he is. But it was still always a part of it.
Well, we're going to get down to the last couple of questions here, but and now I'm going to drill down really deep. Brett, I understand you were with a group one time. You played The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Oh yeah, that was for my senior talent show here at Austin High School in Austin, Texas.
You want to do a reprise?
I'm not sure we have enough of a band to do that tonight.
So how do you make your violin sound like a fiddle?
Well, it's really the same instrument. It's just the style in which you play, a lot of double stops and that kind of thing. But I do enjoy some fiddling from time to time.
You lost me at the double stops.
Yeah.
Hey, say a little no. So that was going to be my other question.
Hear you fiddle.
All right. Okay.
So any of you all play with a garage band?
No.
But I know that Nathan loves to play the piano for the grieving attorneys, their Christmas carols and all of that. You had something you described as playing by brain. Tell me a little bit about what you're describing there.
Well, music, I said I like math. Music is mathematical in a sense, that there's a structure to it. There are notes. We have 13 in the Western tradition. Other traditions in the world have more notes than that in a scale. And then we have chord progressions. Not to get too technical, but when you hear some music you like because it moves this way, comes back this way, those are all progressions that are very natural in music. And if you learn those, then you can make music. You can play your own. And so, again, when I was growing up, my music teacher, most of the music teachers at the time taught you how to rehearse, to practice. And you played notes and arpeggio, and you just worked on finger, basically, exercises to learn the piano. But my music teacher taught me how the music is structured and why it moves one way or another way, so that when you hear it, you can hear that taking place. And the wonderful thing I think about that and the law is it's very nonlinear. So the structure is very structured. There's notes, progressions, all these things. But how, as you've all seen, you know, the music that you like, it moves one way or another way. It's very nonlinear, and the law is like that too. I mean, we have rules and constructions of the law and precedents that we're supposed to apply and do, but every case, I mean, anybody who's been a judge very long, even practicing law very long, will know cases come up. It's a little bit here, it's a little bit there, shades and phases, and there's a very non-linearity to it that corresponds to music.
Brett, Suzuki's a little bit playing by ear.
Yeah.
You're hearing the music rather than just following it on the scale.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I actually had to catch up with my music reading after a while because I learned to play by ear, but it does let you pick up things like Devil Went Down to Georgia and other things to listen to. But it also makes you a good listener, and I think that's certainly served me well. And as Nathan said, I think, you know, for a job like the law, to have an avocation like music is such a blessing, because it really, you know, gives you something that's familiar and something that you really enjoy, that's totally, in some ways, totally different. In others, there are a lot of similarities, but it's I find it's a great you know, escape and release, and also, you know, often a way when you're not thinking directly about it. If you go and play something for a while, you'll come back with fresh ideas, and so I continue to find a lot of joy in it.
Any law clerks find you singing in chambers?
Sometimes I sing in chambers. Bo, don't tell them that. But yes, I've been able to sing at my law clerks' weddings. And, you know, I have to say, one of the most special places I've ever sung, besides church or something, is at a naturalization ceremony. And that's really special. I remember Judge Hittner called me in and he said, "You're going to do the speech." And then he called me a couple days before the thing and he said, "You're not just going to do the speech, you're going to preside." And then he called me and he said, "You're not going to just preside, but you're going to sing the national anthem." We arrived at the thing and he said, "Oh, the marshal always sings 'God Bless the USA.' And you're going to go down there and sing with the marshal when they sing." And I fortunately knew the song because my grandmother used to be in some kind of Lee Greenwood fan club. But it was just, you know, I was kind of funny that he had me just added on. But so there are really neat memories and things you can share. And having a hobby, whether it's music or art or whatever it is really good for your brain. It keeps your brain agile and young. It's good for your emotions and to handle things and compartmentalize and deal with things. You know, it's part of being healthy, having hobbies. And so I encourage you to pick up your instrument or go write a poem or do whatever it is that you do. It doesn't have to be what I do, but it's real. I think it's good for us.
That's great. I had an old style teacher, so all she spent time and said my hands were too small for the octave, so she spent time trying to stretch my finger. Here. Well, anyway, we've got one last treat for you all. Texas, our Texas, if I understand. The three of you are going to do it, so we'll get to hear from the three again. And so let's do Texas.
Okay, actually, I'm wondering if we have a tenor in the house who used to be on the Supreme Court. Is he available to come and sing Texas, Our Texas with me?
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Come on and do that. This is great. That's great. Thank you for doing this.
It's okay. Oh no, you sing whatever you want to sing. You just sing sing whatever you want.
Well, I can't see that.
Can you see it? Well, you
Yeah,
kind of
hold
know
on.
the song, don't you? Texas, our Texas. You know? Can you see?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, look, there's notes.
There's music.
Great. Hi.
Y'all sing along.
Please. Texas, our Texas, all hail the mighty state.
Come on, Kid Wise.
Texas,
Our
Texas, so wonderful, so great, boldest and grandest, withstanding every test. Oh, in power wide and glorious, you stand supremely blessed. God bless you, Texas, and keep you brave and strong, that you may grow in power and worth throughout the ages long. God bless you, Texas, and keep you brave and strong, that you may grow in power and worth throughout the ages long. Thank you.
Come on, another great thank you for all the entertainment tonight. Thank you very much. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I only have one more thing to do. So I've already made 3 mistakes tonight, and I think I can get this one right. Justice Bland, will you please come up and join me in swearing in my successor, Jasmine Winton, as the next president of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society?
So on behalf of the Supreme Court, thank you all for just such a wonderful, or thank you to the society for such a wonderful evening of music and fellowship. It's the beginning of the new term. The new law clerks have started. We have new cases to argue and to decide starting next week. Can't think of a better way to kick off the term than to be with all of you tonight. It's the point of maximum optimism, the same point Longhorn fans felt last Saturday at 10:59. So, good luck. You ready? All right. I, Jasmine Winton,
I, Jasmine Winton,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will administer the office
that I will administer the office
of President
of President
of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society
of the Texas Supreme Court Historical
to
Society
the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I pledge to faithfully discharge my duties,
I pledge to faithfully discharge my duties,
to preserve for posterity
to preserve for posterity
the lives and work
the lives and work
of the Supreme Court
of the Supreme Court
and the appellate courts of Texas.
and the appellate courts of Texas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. It is a tremendous honor to stand before you as the newly sworn in president of the Texas Supreme Court Historical Society. Now, I will be brief because I know I'm the last thing standing between you and the hotel bar, and that is a dangerous place to be. First, I would like to pause and recognize the outstanding leadership of our outgoing president, Lisa Hobbs. Lisa, your vision and your guidance have kept the society strong. On behalf of all of us, thank you for your service and dedication. And Lisa, I promise not to call you at midnight with questions. Well, at least not often. I'm also delighted to introduce and welcome our newly elected officers. When I call your name, please stand so we can recognize you. Matthew Kolodowski, who's our secretary this year. Rachel Stinson, our treasurer. Mark Trachtenberg, our vice president. And Aaliyah Atkins-Derrick, our new president-elect. Each of you bring sharp minds and serious talent to this work, and perhaps even better, a willingness to do it without billing in 6-minute increments. So let's talk about I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our Board of Trustees. If you are a current trustee, please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you for your service and your dedication to the society. For me, history is not just an interest, it's deeply personal. I'm the daughter of 2 orphans, so growing up, I didn't have a long family history to turn to or stories passed down through generations. That absence, however, made me fall in love with history itself. History became my way of connecting, of understanding where we come from and how stories shape who we are. In college, I studied history along with theater, which might seem like an odd pairing until you realize that both, like the law, are really about storytelling. They help us make sense of the human experience, who we are and why it matters. Which brings me to the theme of tonight's dinner, the judiciary and the arts. On the surface, law and art might seem like opposites. One is grounded in rules and precedent, the other in creativity and expression. But both share common purposes. Both seek to interpret meaning, communicate, connect us, and give form to our shared values. And let's be honest, the arts also helps makes us better lawyers. The legal profession is demanding. It requires discipline, analysis, and endurance. But it's the arts that sharpen our empathy, restore our imagination, and keep us human. A lawyer who reads, listens, or creates is a lawyer who understands people better and persuades courts better. And in a society that feels more divided every day, the arts, like the law, gives us something to experience together. This year, the Society will launch a strategic planning process, and we want your ideas. This organization is more than a dinner or a journal. It's the living memory of the Texas judiciary. And like any good precedent, it only endures if we preserve it. Years from now, no one may remember me or even most of us in this room, but they will remember the court as an institution. And if we do our part, the society as its guardian. That's why your membership, your participation, your support matters. Together, we can ensure that the history of our Supreme Court remains vibrant and accessible for generations to come. So tonight, as we celebrate the court, the society, and the arts, let's also remember that history is not something that just happens. It's something that we write carefully, deliberately, and together. Thank you for entrusting me with this role. I look forward to the year ahead. And before we adjourn, please mark your calendars now. The next Hemphill dinner will be held on Thursday, September 10th, 2026. And now, I release you to the bar. The good kind, not the exam. Thank you and good night.